The world of theater is full of stars. But just like in the night sky, sometimes we don't see them all. Some are in the wings, some are maybe up over us in the catwalk. Hopefully they're not under the stage, but you never know. In this series, we are going to meet those hidden stars of the theater, hear their stories, and be inspired by them. So join me on this journey here in my state-of-the-art production studio in my backyard as we meet the hidden stars of theater.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hidden Stars of Theater. It is always great to have you here in my little camper in my backyard to meet some amazing people, some amazing hidden stars, the people that help make the magic happen. And today we've got a great star, as we always do, in a man named Judd. And Brian has been an automation carpenter, but he's doing something now that really supports the industry he founded a company and he's running it called Casecraft. We're going to learn what that is. But first, we're transitioning a little bit. You know, up until now, in every episode, we've had a feature school and we've seen their show shots and we've seen their seniors. But summer is here. Summer is upon us. And so people are scattered here and there and no more featured schools. But I want to feature you. So here's what I need you to do. In the description of this video, you're going to see my email address, hiddenstarsoftheater@gmail.com, hiddenstarsoftheater@gmail.com. If you want me to put a show shots, whether you're in community theater or you're at a high school or whatever it is, send me some pictures and we'll put them on the air. We'll show you off. You'll be one of our hidden stars. That'll be amazing. But today, nobody did. And so I got a great idea. I'm going to show you some of my show shots. I have a few. I've only been doing this for, 43 years or something. 43 years. I don't want to admit that. Anyway. So we're going to roll those now. You're going to have to endure them until somebody else sends me pictures. I'm going to keep showing my own stuff. So if you don't want to see me all the time in the show shots, send me some pictures. Let's put them on the air. Let's have you be a hidden star and show you off to the world. We're all over the world, man. All right. So we're going to do that. And then we'll be right back with Judd. So let's roll my show shots. All right, everyone, welcome back. And man, I'm excited today. We have got something a little bit different than what we've normally had up to this point. The people that we've interviewed have been actively, being stagehands in a show right now. And today our guest, Judd, has that in his past, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that. But right now, he is actually the owner, founder, guru, all things wonderful about a company called Casecraft. And not Spacecraft. That would be Elon Musk, but probably. But maybe we'll interview him. I don't care about him. It's all about Judd is our star of the day, right? And we will learn more about Casecraft and how they support the theater industry in a very cool way. But Brian, thank you, man. Thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Jamie. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It is definitely our privilege to have you for sure. And, we've talked a little bit and I'm super excited for people to hear your story because it is way cool. And yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, as always, we want to jump right into it because we've got a lot to cover and not nearly as much time as I wish we had. So what we're going to do, as always, is really want to start by getting to know who you are. And who you are, meaning where you've come from, kind of what are the things in your past that really molded you and formed you into the Judd that we know today. All the way from LA to Las Vegas, which really sounds like a great album or a movie title. But I actually came up with a better one. It's Judd. from the City of Angels to Sin City. I messed it up. From the City of Angels to Sin City. There you go. See? When you write your memoirs, you can use that. All I've been asking for.
That'll be it.
Yeah. Just put a thank you to me for the title in the front cover or something. That would be great.
Absolutely. We'll put your picture on the cover.
Well, I don't, if you want to. No, but honestly, man, just would love to hear about the people and the things that really influenced you in life and towards a career in theater and supporting theater. And so I'll just turn it over to you and let you go, man.
Okay. I grew up in Los Angeles up until a point where my parents divorced, and through a bizarre series of incidents, we moved, my mom, my sister, and I moved to a little town in southwestern Utah called St. George. And this would have been 1985 or 1986. And I always felt fairly disconnected there, coming from a very urban environment and a very urban upbringing to being into what at the time was pretty rural and very conservative. And I felt out of place. I tried sports, and I was in the marching band for a little while, and I just never felt like I was connecting to anything. Okay. And I was in auto shop one year, and I loved auto shop. And one of the guys that was in auto shop with me said that I should join the technical theater class because we had to take an art elective. I thought that, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. I didn't really care for music, and I just was kind of washing out everywhere else.
Gotcha.
And I got in there my junior year in high school, and the teacher was a man named Burke Belknap. We called him Mr. B. And he was, just from the moment that I met him, I felt like there were things that he knew that I needed to know. There were things, there was a connection that I had with him, and the rest of the students had with him. Everybody loved him. Yeah. And he was, we didn't have any departments in that technical theater class. He taught everything. He taught lighting and sound, and he knew how to do pretty much everything in that little theater. Wow. And he gave me a connection to something new. He gave me something that I felt like I had been looking for a long time. And that was a place to put my energy that wasn't destructive.
Oh, wow.
It allowed me a chance to learn about different crafts, electrical and rigging and carpentry and, obviously all on a rudimentary high school level. But it opened a part of my mind that I didn't know I needed to tap before.
Yeah. And how big was that school?
I think my graduating class was 300-ish people.
Okay. So it wasn't tiny, but it wasn't huge.
It wasn't tiny, but it wasn't huge. Yeah.
And they do several shows a year? Okay.
We did, if I remember correctly, I think we did one show per quarter.
Okay.
And then we would do, Mr. B's technical team would do the assemblies. All the assemblies were in that auditorium. Right. So we would do, run lights and sound and house lights and stuff like that for those, for those events. Yeah. Using that term very loosely, events.
Absolutely. Okay.
But that was really the beginning to, I knew then that I didn't know what part of the industry I wanted to be in, but I knew right there. I knew in my junior year in high school that this is what I wanted to pursue, that this was an opportunity for me to be different and to use a part of my brain that wasn't being utilized in history class or math class or, whatever.
Yeah, no. And I would imagine it made you much more motivated to be involved at school, just completely, right?
It motivated me I loved math. And I love science, and I really just didn't care about the rest of it. But my personality is a little bit obsessive. So when I got into the theater, that's all I wanted to do. I poured everything that I wanted into that little building and into the math and science, because that helped me on, I knew that was, Mr. Belknap told me that was going to help me on the back end.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so you're moving into junior, senior year at that point?
I was, I kind of let go of a bunch of my classes moving into my senior year, and I focused pretty heavily on the theater. And I didn't graduate with any honors or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I barely graduated because I was spending either a lot of time in the theater or a lot of time not at school. But Mr. Belknap helped me secure a scholarship to Utah State University in the theater department there. And I agreed to it. And I went up after graduation, moved into a little apartment with a friend, and started my freshman year at Utah State, and loved all of the theater classes, I loved the staff up there. And then I went to my first required class, which was a History 101 class. And I walked into the auditorium, and I, to this day, couldn't tell you what the professor looked like, because he was just this tiny little guy on stage. And that was the last time I was in that class.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was any way that I could connect to that material, being one of like 400 people in a class.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many people were actually in that class, but I do know it was in an auditorium, and I do know there were more than I had ever seen in a class before. And I knew that wasn't a way that I could learn. So by the end of my second quarter of college, I had kind of determined that wasn't going to be the right place for me to be. I needed to move into a place where I felt like I could succeed, and I could learn on my own.
Okay.
And that's when I decided to move to Seattle. And this would have been around 1993, which was an amazing time to be in Seattle, especially with the music scene. The corporate events were exploding because of Microsoft and Intel and Sony. And it was just it was a magical time to be in that city and introducing myself to this new industry. And I was fortunate enough to get involved with a young company, a young US company, but a very well-established Canadian company called West Sun. And they had their thumb on the pulse. They got into a lot of massive events in their first couple of years. And I was fortunate enough to get to work with them for a few years.
Very good. And were they kind of all things technical, theater, event-wise? They were more event or lighting, everything, staging?
The Canadian company was very event and music focused. They also had an offshoot that dealt with a lot of Broadway tours. But the U.S. office was really there to try and break into the corporate event industry and some music, to a much smaller degree, some music. Over the course of my tenure there, the West Sun America picked up the Fish Tour after Jerry Garcia died, which went from just like a couple trucks to like 40 trucks overnight.
Absolutely.
They did the first Green Day, one of the first Green Day tours in the U.S. So they were able to pick up little musical, little rock and roll acts right out of the gate. But their big thing was really Microsoft.
Yeah.
We did the Microsoft Windows 95 rollout on the Microsoft campus, which was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. We had stages everywhere. There were dignitaries from all over the world. Secret Service was there. We had to have Secret Service clearance in order to just be on the campus. It was really remarkable.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I remember that happening at the time, and was just like, that's just seeing pictures and video. It's amazing. I bet it was incredible to be there live for sure.
It was.
That's cool. So, all right. So you're there working. Is that did you go directly from there into theater? How did that connection happen? Like,
so I was working. I had mostly been doing corporate events and industrial shows and stuff like that up until this point. And I had a client that was working. He was the head carpenter at the theater on the University of Washington campus. And the end of my tenure at West Sun, I made a series of mistakes. I made a series of bad decisions, and it meant that I needed to leave there and find new work somewhere else. Right. And having picked up this client, I contacted him. I went to work at his theater as their rigger and their flyman for a period of time. And then he took me on the road for my first real theater tour in 1995 or 96. I think it might have been 96. And it was a tour with a company called Cirque Inc. out of Hollywood, Florida. Okay. And the show was called Cirque Ingenue. And I was hired as the act rigger and the automation rigger. And
that is it kind of like a Cirque du Soleil type of?
It was sort of Cirque du Soleil light. Yeah, I mean, it was, gotcha. The talent was incredible. The budget was small, but the talent was amazing. The performers were amazing. Our crew was really great. And pardon me, that show afforded me the opportunity to meet the guy that I would tour with for the rest of my adult career. By the name of Emmett Kaiser, who is now the head carpenter, the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles. He and I toured together from 1996 until we both retired in 2011.
Okay. Very good. And was the time at Cirque, was that your first, is that where you got into automation, or had you done some of that back at West Sun as well?
I had done a small amount of that. I was always a tinkerer. Okay. I wanted to know about everything. So when we were on show site, and I would get together with other companies that were running the stage automation, I always wanted to see what they were doing and find out how it worked. And that's where I was kind of learning that this was a great place for me to be. But I had a strong rigging background coming out of West Sun into the theater stuff.
Okay. Very good. And so then after Cirque, what was next and what took you there?
After Cirque, I had, through connections with Emmett Kaiser, he introduced me to a bunch of his friends that were touring stagehands that did Broadway shows, that did union Broadway shows. Yeah. And at the time, in my mind, that was the pinnacle. That was like making it. And I felt like I was pretty young at this point. And I interviewed with the head carpenter, and I wound up going into the electric side of things. I was hired as the Verilite electrician and the deck electrician for the Avita 20th anniversary tour. Okay. And they flew me to New York, and I got to meet Mike Sullivan Sr. at the IATSE office in the Viacom building. Wow. And I was starstruck,
I bet.
I felt like I was living someone else's life.
Yeah. So you went from driving, the coast and ending up in Seattle on your own, kind of college isn't for me, to suddenly, boom, you work your way up, and now they fly you to New York. To the big house, right? And you meet with the big. Right. Yeah, that must have been cool. That must have been quite the experience for sure. And so, being starstruck then, was it very difficult for you to make that decision? Hey, I want to do this, or was it, nope, this is my thing, let's do it?
I threw my entire self into that after that, and my entire self stayed in that until I retired in 2011.
And that being automation carpentry, pretty much?
Well, I bounced back and forth. On Avita, I was the Verilite electrician. Okay. On Hairspray, I was on Saturday Night Fever, I was the head electrician. And that was a smaller tour. It was the second national that went out. And then on Hairspray, the first national tour, I was the deck electrician, and we didn't have Verilites, we had Martins, but I was still the moving light tech on that show. And after that, I wanted to get back to what I felt like were my roots, where I was really comfortable, where I really thought the magic was, which was rigging and scenic automation. And from then on, for the rest of my career, that's all I did.
Got you. Okay. And so Verilites, you've mentioned that a couple times here. I know what Verilites are, but I don't think a lot of our people are not going to know that, or a lot of our viewers. So just a quick synopsis, man, drop some wisdom on us, just some basic knowledge. What a Verilite, and why is it important? Where do they fit into this whole thing?
Very, very brief history. In the early 80s, somebody way brilliant found out that they could use a dichroic filter, which is a color impregnated glass, to create different colored light and intensities by rotating that glass through a beam of light. He took that idea to Genesis, Phil Collins and Genesis, and they gave him $1 million to produce this moving light that they would then use on their first tours. And that's kind of really the very brief synopsis of what Verilite started out as. In the early days, you had to be trained in Dallas. And if you were going to work on one of these, if you were going to open one of these moving lights up, you had to be in a tent so nobody could see it. It was really secretive.
Oh, wow.
In 1993, I think, is when we got our first batch from Verilite at West Sun, and they had created a new line called Series 300, which was the VL5 and the VL6, which was more geared towards less secrecy and more mass producing. We want to get them out to more people. And we were lucky enough to be one of the first companies to get our hands on some. And it, if you've ever focused a Leica or a Fresnel and been on a ladder, or certainly been at the top of an A-frame, 16 feet in the air, wiggling back and forth, you can definitely appreciate these instruments and being able to focus them comfortably from your chair in the house. They are really, the technology then was, and again, it felt like getting alien technology. It just was so anything outside of what I thought I was going to be able to put my hands on.
Oh, you were the cool kid when you talked to all the other lighting guys, weren't you?
I was the quiet kid because I was still very much way over my head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So now, obviously, they're everywhere, right? We go to tours and there's all these automated lights. They're flipping around. They're changing colors. They're changing focus.
A million different companies building them. And
absolutely. I didn't know that Genesis was the genesis of the of the automated light thing. That's an interesting piece of history. I had no idea. Wow. Yeah. That's I bet that $1 million was a good day for that guy. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Well, I kind of distracted you. So you're on tours now. You're doing that thing. So how long did that happen? And then, when did you know it was time to kick that off and do something else?
There's a part of my heart that's still on the road.
Okay.
When you do it for an extended period of time, you never fully leave touring, I don't think. I feel like there's always a part of you that stays out there and is interested in what's happening out there and cares about the people that are still doing it and wants to see things still improve for everybody out there, because it's not an easy life. It's a really bold two-sided coin. It is both one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I've been around the world a few times, just being able to, just being with a show. And the other side of it is I've missed birthdays. I've missed family. I've missed other things at home because I've spent at least 50 weeks a year in a tour bus or on an airplane. So it's a strong two-sided coin.
Yeah. Lots of give and take, it sounds like, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Got you.
So is that eventually then kind of what led you to say, hey, maybe I've done this long enough, or
there was Emmett, the man that I've mentioned a couple times, he and I had an agreement very early on in our touring career that at some point we were going to look at each other and say, you don't want to stay too long at the fair. It might be time to hang it up. And we got to, we both got to a point where we had been on the road, now for, 12, 14 years. And if you don't have a plan, then at some point you wake up and you've been on the road for 30 years and you've missed out on other things.
Yeah, life is gone, right?
Right. And I didn't want that. I also was, I was lucky enough to be able to rekindle a relationship with the one that got away. And she and I got back together in 2010. And I knew she was the woman that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
Awesome.
And it's weird having those two loves kind of at odds with each other.
Yeah.
My love for theater and my love for my job was so strong, and my love for her was so strong. And I wanted to figure out a way that I could have both of those things, because I knew I wanted to wake up with her every day for the rest of my life. But I also knew that just walking away from this business wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and
I wanted to figure out a way I could do it.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to, you don't want to ever take the chance where you have to look back someday and regret, oh, you made me do that. You made me leave that. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's that tension for sure. Well, that's great. So Casecraft, was that the answer?
That, as it turned out, was the answer. I spent the majority of my last tour, which was West Side Story, figuring out an exit strategy. And what does it look like? What does leaving will look like? What does getting out of here look like?
Because you probably looked at her and said, "Hey, there's a place for her." Right? Did you do that? Please tell me you did that, Brian. Please tell me you did that.
I never did that. I never sing the show tunes because I'm a stagehand. No one's going to pay to hear me sing.
I got you. Fair enough.
So I spent a lot of time trying to think of what I could do that would both satisfy the part of my brain that needs to be engaged and be off the road. What I knew I was going to be bad at was being like a local stagehand, a local union stagehand working the bounce. I had spent so much of my entire career being the person that knew the plan, that not knowing the plan and following someone else's plan was going to be really hard for me. And I am hugely thankful for all of the stagehands that blindly just did what I said for so many years.
Yeah.
For no good reason other than I was the one that knew. And I'm hugely appreciative of them. And I also knew that that just wasn't me. That just wasn't something I could do.
Right. Absolutely.
And I looked around knowing that for years I had ideas in my head that I could make my life easier or my coworkers' life easier if I had someone who could build me this thing. And I had a light bulb moment where I said, I can be that. I can be that person that can make this thing for everybody else. And if someone has ideas, they can bring them to me, and I can do that too. And that was what I really wanted. Ultimately, that was the beginning of Casecraft, and building road cases was kind of the foundational part of the business that afforded me the opportunity to make things, to make widgets, to do things that would help improve the lives of the people that were still out on the road.
Yeah, you were the, hey, wouldn't it be cool if guy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's fun. And of course, having the experience you had and walking through all of that, I'm sure you had a lot of those ideas already going in, right?
I did. And I was fortunate enough for the majority of my career, I was fortunate enough to work with the highest quality people, not just even in my department. I worked with the best carpentry crew that's ever been. But the rest of the people that I worked with in their respective departments were the highest quality people that all had amazing ideas, but we didn't have a place where we could send our ideas to make them into a physical thing. So we were always trying to hobble something together on a loading dock, with whatever hand tools we had.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is the reason you guys were there, right? I mean, the people that you want in those jobs are the people who know how to cobble those things together.
Right.
Get it done.
Yes.
Get it done, people. It's one of the things that I'm appreciating and more. And the more people I talk to in this industry that are at that top level, that's very consistent thing, is that they're all very creative problem solvers with the skills that it takes to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's a huge blessing to them to not have to do that, right? To be able to get something that was actually made to do this thing instead of having to throw some things together out of leftover stuff on the truck.
I hope that's something that we can provide to the people that are still doing the hard job.
Well, I know that I've talked enough of them. In fact, that's how we're even talking, is that through these interviews, I've heard Casecraft. And when I was interviewing, I think Mike Ruckstad, I said, what's Casecraft? And he told me, and it's because they appreciate what you're doing. So from them to you, sir. That's cool. That's great. All right. And so I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about Casecraft later, but I want to dive, before we get too far away from the rest of the story, into a couple things. One of those, after you realized that college wasn't your gig, which was fine, and we've talked about that college is for some. I've talked to a lot of stagehands, and some of them did go to school and get a degree. Some of them did not, and they all kind of had different advice on that. But I know when you and I talked before yesterday, you really shared some sage advice, some kind of your view on that. Is college the right thing for a person? And I think you had some nephews or something that you had shared that with. Yeah. And I want you to tell our viewers, because a lot of our viewers are junior high school age. They're thinking about the future. Is this something I wanted? Do I go to college? Do I go the union route and be a journeyman? What does that look like? And so, man, just tell them what you told me, if you remember that. I hope you do. If not, I can.
Some version of it, yeah. I firmly believe that if you're honest about what you love about this business, and even if you don't know specifically down to what it is you want your job to look like, if you're honest about what you want and the love that you have for it, and you commit yourself to that, your path will become clear. And that might be college. And that might be a union apprenticeship, and that might be regional theater, and that might be taking out a one-nighter tour. No one's path is the same, and no one's path is written in stone. But if you're honest with yourself and you're honest with the process, then I guarantee your path will become clear as you walk it.
See, everybody listening, I told you, that's like Mr. Miyagi to Daniel. Right? That's like Yoda to Luke. So here, Brian Judd is your guru of the day. That's good stuff. Find what you love and pursue it in honesty, and the path will become clear to you. That's you're like a Jedi master, man. That's good. Honestly, that's really, really good. Okay, so next, and we talked a little bit about this, but and just a quick explanation. We've talked to a lot of carpenters already, some different interviews we've done, and talked to some people. Automation carpentry. What makes that different from a typical carpenter on tour or Broadway? It's
the automation carpenter is kind of a neat blend of a few different disciplines. Obviously, it's carpenter centric because we deal with moving scenery around, whether it's on and off stage or up and down or however it needs to move. If there's a motor that's attached to it, or if it's hydraulic or pneumatic or whatever, that's the automation carpenter's responsibility. So the foundation of working with scenery is right there, but it does require a pretty good electrical knowledge. You're working with different types of electric winches, or as I mentioned, hydraulic pressure units, or depending on what the show requires, you have a pretty wide arsenal of what can be used to move stuff on and off stage. The third layer to that is, especially as you get into fly automation, is the rigging aspect. I think it's important for your automation carpenter to have a good foundation in rigging so that they can do their job safely and they can do their job effectively without requiring oversight. So it really moves across a few different disciplines, and it's what spoke to me the most, because it did take a bunch of my interests and kind of smash them all together into one thing I can get paid to do.
Yeah. Cool. And the carpenter is almost the, not the rover, the jack of all trades, right? You got to know a little bit of everybody else's job in order to get it done and do it right.
The most effective crews that I've worked on, and this is coming from, I did mostly union shows. But the most effective crews that I worked on were the ones that helped each other, where the one that I knew that before I could put this next stage of the set on, my electrician had to do these 4 things. And my sound guy knew before he could put his next layer of towers on, he needed to call me so I could rig this motor. The most effective crews and the best times that I've had on the road were where everybody on stage knew every single thing that had to happen in order to open the show and waited for each other.
It's choreography, right? It's like choreography. You got to know, and you got to trust your partners in the dance.
And we all have the same goal, which is opening on time.
Yeah, and doing the magic.
Right.
Well, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. So would you say that being one, you can say this without offending others, hopefully, you guys are kind of the geeks of the carpentry world in theater, you know?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, I would, we are, I think we're the researchers. I think we're and this is not to say that the other members of the crew don't do this, because they all do.
Absolutely.
But we are, we're the tinkerers and the researchers and the ones that are trying to, poke around and see how can we shave 10 minutes off of this part of load in. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, because it is sort of cross-disciplinary. I think you get a unique perspective.
And I would imagine, like, even now, there's a ton of computer automation involved with it. So probably even more so, it's all becoming more and more computer controlled at the very least.
Yes. Yeah. From my very first automation job to my very last was,
light years.
Light years. Yeah. My very first console was called an AWU, and it was this tall box that had dials on it, and it was accurate to about a 1/4 inch.
Okay.
And it was all manual, so you would dial, how far you wanted it to travel, and when you hit the go button, it had these. It was really archaic.
Yeah.
And at the end, we could do a lot just by inputting numbers into the CPU.
And probably right now you could do even more on your phone. There's probably an app, tour app, right? No, anyway.
I do want to give a plug to somebody who is completely changing stage automation. Yeah. And that is Gareth Connors at Creative Connors. They are revolutionizing. They've taken something that is normally very complicated and turned it into something that is accessible all the way down to the high school level.
Really?
High schools can now rent stage automation, full turntable packages. Their site is very well worth checking out, and following them on Instagram is very well worth it. They do amazing things.
Well, maybe we need to have Gareth on the Hidden Stars of Theater. We'll have to work on that. That sounds like a great thing to do. Awesome. Thank you for that. That's a good piece of info, especially because there's so many high schools watching this right now, and they're all like, what? What? So, in fact, probably we just lost all our viewers, Brian. Thank you. They all just jumped over to another website. Come back. No, they love us. They love us. So, Casecraft. Let's talk about that for some time here, because I want people to know what you do, because you've primarily, been in touring and Broadway and some other things you'll share with us, some really cool things you guys get to do that are I kind of fanboyed over. But there's all kinds of things that you make that even schools might go on your website and go, oh, we could use one of those, touring for contests and things like that. So tell us, when we talk about Casecraft, what are those cases that you're talking about, man? What do you build? What do you do?
So foundationally, the beginning line of Casecraft was all about supporting the Broadway touring industry. And the road cases kind of break themselves up into 2 different types. There's the Broadway style road case, which is typically big, 4 foot by 2 foot by 6 foot tall, 2 big bifold doors, and is typically made out of hardwood, kind of crate construction. So that's the Broadway style. And then there's what I think more people would be familiar with, which is the ATA style road case that you would see backstage at any rock and roll show. You've seen them. You may not even know you've seen them, but they're but if I were to show you one, you would know exactly what I was talking about.
Are they like black with the silver edging and the little metal things on the corners that keep me from destroying the box? That's the FDA style. Yes, I've lifted more of those than I want to think about. Probably you made me lift those. Thanks, man.
So foundationally, the company was built on the Broadway style road case, and that because I felt like there was a need there that needed to be filled. One of the main companies that did it retired in Pittsburgh and decided they didn't want to do it anymore. So I felt like there was a need to fill that, and that's where we started. I wanted to design my way around the things backstage that always bothered me. I've always had a workspace sensitivity. I want the space that I'm working in to be what it needs to be for me to do my job the best.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I felt like
no matter where you are, right? Especially
no where I am,
it's nice to have that commonality every place you go. At least I know where my tools are.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like we sacrifice some of that on the road to folding tables and, whatever space we happen to be in, how big is front of house? Do I have to go into the booth? I feel like we sacrifice our best case scenario a lot on the road, and I don't feel like we need to.
Was that an intended pun? Our best case scenario? You need to use that. You're welcome to use that for marketing if you haven't yet.
Thank you. We'll put that on the back of our next t-shirts.
Scenario. I like it.
So that was the foundation. And then we discovered that I discovered that I needed to branch out in order to grow. So I slowly started dipping my toe into the ATA case manufacturing, building cable trunks, and there's not a lot of imagination in that. And I got bored with it pretty quickly. And then I started thinking that workstations can be anything. They don't have to be a Broadway style road case. The materials that we use to construct these workstations can be anything. It all comes down to what is it that our client needs to do, and how best can we help them do it? And that's what we've turned into. Is I really feel like that me and my entire crew are best at helping individuals or companies work out the best way for them to do their jobs in the fastest way possible. Protect it as it travels and minimize setup time, and all of those things are what we really pride ourselves on. We don't have a lot of interest in making cable boxes, although that's what the guys are making in the shop right now.
Yeah.
But the real thing for me is that problem solving. That's what makes me want to come here every morning. Excuse me, is knowing that there are problems out there that people have that we can help them solve.
So it's all about, so the creative aspect of it, right? And that goes all the way back to what when Mr. Belknap awoken in you this thing you didn't know was there. That's really what it was, wasn't it? Was that creative, the ability to create and to solve problems through that creative thought process and tinkering and building and doing all of that.
Yes, indeed.
So thank you, Mr. Belknap. We owe you.
Yeah, right.
Casecraft. Absolutely. Right. So that's that's the passion. That's the drive, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. I am excited to come in here every day.
That is, and let's geek out a little bit. What are some of when you think back on it, what are some of the projects that you've had a call for? And are you to the point that people call you, or do you see something you think, I can fix it, you go after it, a little bit of a mix of that?
There's both. Yeah, there's a little bit of both. We, on the Broadway side, one of our biggest clients is the Hamilton franchise. So every time they send out a Hamilton tour, we build basically for every department what they need to move their show. So we build all of wardrobe, all of props, a lot of, the functional side, the control side of electrics, some of the control side of sound, carpentry tool cases, stuff for the pit, stuff for the conductor. It's a long list of things that we build for Hamilton. And that's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, in fact, our co-producer of our show, Mike Ruckstadt, who is an A2 in LA, he just got, I think, from you guys a new tool case, and he told me to tell you thank you. It's awesome. He loves it. So he was very excited about his new Casecraft tool box. I was a little jealous when he was telling me about it. Dang, buddy, thanks, man. So that's awesome. And so you got to live the dream, dude. You got the girl. And you got doing the dream job. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I don't feel like there's really anything else I could ask for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man. So kids out there, listen, that's the secret. Be the backstage. You'll get the girl and the good job. I don't know. It just sounded good. Well, speaking of good sage advice, sir, it is time for you now to drop on us a wisdom bomb for the Gateway Mortgage Wall of Wisdom. So, a short snippet. Do you need a second to think about it? You got something? You got something that we can put? Remember, listen, don't pull a Ruckstadt. All right, I mentioned Mike. When he was on the show, he gave me 4 things to write down. Listen, a guy gets Hamilton booked as a gig, and he gets I can.
He's all prolific.
I can do 4 things. No, I'm just kidding, Mike. I love you, bro. They're all good. But yeah. So basically, I write it here, Brian, on some gaff tape with my paint pen, and it goes on the wall. And what we like to say is it's going to live there on the wall forever, or until my trailer falls apart, which we've got a tornado watch tonight, so it may be short-lived on the wall. We'll see. Right. So your turn.
I feel like it's a variation on what I was saying earlier about walking that path in honesty. And I think this transcends everything, and at least it certainly has for me. If you are truly honest about what it is that you love in your personal life, in your professional life, and you can commit yourself to those things, that process will never let you down. It doesn't mean there won't be problems.
Yeah.
But you will be successful if you continually be honest with yourself.
So how do we want to put that? Follow the path in honesty?
Yeah.
Is that sum it up in a few words?
I think so. Yeah.
Follow the path in honesty. Because the reason is it's not a fine point pen, and I could never write that. I'm giving you in honesty why I've got to reduce it down to some. All right, very good.
You can ask anybody that knows me. I'm not brief at all. I ramble on and on and on.
No, dude, today has been perfect. And so before we close this thing off, is there anything else that you want to share? I know we've got I'll give a little teaser here to everybody watching. There's going to be a secondary video, and I'll promo it here, where Brian is going to school us on a work day in the life of a stagehand. He broke it down for me before, and I've asked him to do that, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to do it we're going to make you watch another video because it deserves to stand alone. So other than that, is there any, and there may not be anything else that we haven't talked about that you think, hey, this would be good for people to know? And if the answer is no, I think I've dropped enough wisdom for the day, then we're good with that.
The only other thing that I want to touch on is the community aspect that the entertainment industry has brought to me. And not being a Las Vegas native, but moving here really just to expand our company. We've had an opportunity to meet a number of different people in the city, and I've watched, for right now, for instance, Local 720, the IA Local 720 has a group of people after basically the entire city shut down, all the casinos shut down, all the shows shut down, like they did everywhere else in the country. Yeah. A bunch of stagehands found they had no place to work. Right. And then this PPE shortage came up, and the Local 720 Women's Committee got together and said, we've got a bunch of stitchers that can make masks. And these 2 amazing women got together and organized this incredible citywide effort. We're involved. We use our CNC laser to cut fabric patterns for them and to cut ear savers for them. But they watching them work this tragedy in a community. And it's all because we know each other through the arts. Another organization in town, the Broadway in the Hood, he uses theater to help at-risk youth get out of their situation and find something to love, find a passion that they wouldn't have. So the entertainment industry continually shows me what taking care of the person next door is.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. The whole, even in my life, my mom, who is an old wardrober from back in the day, has been making masks. She's made hundreds of masks. And the mayor, who is a friend of mine, neighbor, knows as a prop builder, he came to me, and he's also a doctor, came to me and asked me to make ventilators. And so I designed and built a ventilator that we could build a bunch of. And the goal was to use a locally sourced thing. It's exactly what your passion is, right? Here's a problem. How do we fix it? So I didn't want to order things because I knew if it went really bad here where we are and we had to build a bunch of them, they needed to be locally sourced. So I designed a ventilator that could be built quickly with locally sourced material. And we've got a prototype. Amazing. They've looked at it, said this would work if we had to do it. And so hopefully we don't. Hopefully it sits on my shelf and it's an unused prop that I've built. Right. But it's those skills, right? It's those things that theater has given us and challenged us to do, and to use our brain in that way to be able to do that. So that's awesome. And very much the same thing here where I am in Oklahoma. The theater community, it didn't take long before all of those seamstresses were passing, and not just passing around patterns, but this is the difference, I think, between what a lot of people were doing and the theater people were improving it. Right. How can I make it better? What's in fact, I'll show you, you'll laugh at me, but he also asked me if I could make a respirator. So I happen to have it here. This is a respirator made from a leather mask and from pill bottles. That's
amazing.
And you can even change, look, check this out. You can even change the filter, and it's got the same kind of filter they use for the N95. But that's prop building, right? We do that every day. Yeah. That's not a new thing for us. Now I look a little silly, and I think I look cool in it, but other people have said I look silly. Obviously I don't care if I look silly, but that's it, man. Theater is not just, it is an entertainment thing, but there's so much more to it. And there's
so much more to it.
That's why I love to talk to guys like you and hear these stories and educate the world about that. And man, and I after you shared that, I'm more convinced, because I don't know if you know it, you shared with us that you have a laser and you're making sabers. You said you're mask saber, or did you say saber? Maybe.
Ear savers.
Ear savers. I thought you said sabers. Ear savers are cool. Dude, I thought I had you nailed as a Jedi Master. Fine. But I did get it all on one right here. Follow the path in honesty. All right, man. Here it goes. Up on the board. We're coming up Gateway, Michael. Sorry. But boom, right there. Right in the middle. Dude, Brian, this has been incredible. Thank you for taking the time to do this. It really has been our honor to do that, and to have you here as our guest, and we are the better for it. We not only know about a great company, but we know about a great man, and several. We know about you. We know about Mr. Belknap. And Mr. Belknap, if you watch this, thanks for your investment in this man, because we're all better for it. And so that's a great
Thank you
thing.
For what you're doing, Jamie. This is important work, and I appreciate that you're doing it.
Hey, you know what? I feel humbled to be able to do it, but honored for sure. And it's just a good time. I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I could be doing a lot of other things like digging a ditch right now. This is much more fun. Sitting in my trailer, getting to talk to cool people for sure. So, but thank you for that. But one of the things we do here, and I will be representative of the world, and I'm sure that everyone that watches this will do the same. You spend time on a stage, and you never got to take a curtain call. And so from all of us to you, this is for you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet, man. And so any last words, or just goodbye to us?
I think I've talked myself out.
Well, again, thank you, Brian. Just an amazing, amazing story that you had, and thank you for sharing it with us today. I can't say it enough. Man, I know you guys all enjoyed that, and if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. It's the best way to get to know all the great things when they come out, when we have new episodes, when we've got new bonus videos, all of those things. As soon as they hit, if you're a subscriber, you know right away you get the good stuff. And we're going to start doing some giveaways, and those will be going to our subscribers. So you're going to want to be sure to be a part of that when they start happening here very, very soon. I'll tease you a little bit there, but we've got some great things coming. And comment, send me those show shots, go down, email me. Even if you want to email me and say, hey, Jamie, I think you're cool, or probably going to be, hey, Jamie, I think Brian's cool, because Brian is cool. I'm not, but that's okay. Let me know how you like the show, if there's some things you want to see. But we've got some new stuff coming up that in the next few episodes we're going to be introducing, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, subscribe, let us know how we're doing. And that's going to be it for today. No more seniors. So if you are a graduating senior of 2020, man, you are a star. We love you. We appreciate you. And that's going to be it. So I'll see you guys next episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.